So, welcome again to this platform. Now we're going to talk about politics. We have talked about this subject as well in the past few days, and I would like to invite you to go to YouTube and look at the other videos on this subject. A number of countries have put this on the table, but this morning we have 30 minutes to talk about politics, to go into detail. And, well, we had to have two specialists among us. And it's, of course, a very important subject when we're talking about electronic cigarettes, because this is a product that evolves within our society. You have Nicholas WENBOURNE and Nathalie DUNAND. So our colleague Nicholas WENBOURNE is a legal and regulatory director for Ecig Intelligence, and Nathalie DUNAND is French-speaking. She's an activist, and she's working for EFV. It's a European association we know very well here within the Vape Expo. Elvapote is her association, and this association wants to try to convince people to smoke electronic cigarettes instead of traditional ones. Hi, Nathalie. Good morning. So I'm going to start with a question, a direct question. I'm going to ask this to Nicholas. We are under the impression when we're talking about politics that it's very complicated. It's difficult to see what is important, what is less important. We've seen so many directives, information on directives. We've seen so many articles. It's difficult to see clear within this complex situation. There's a big terminology being used, and also the time it takes for political publications. It is not as easy to deal with it. And what is the reason for this? It's indeed true, it's very complicated. And it's going to take time. But we can compare this situation to tobacco, for example. People have been using tobacco products since 400 years now. And in the United States, the first regulations on a federal level was done in 2009. So it took time. This market started about 10 years ago. And a lot of effort was put on a European level within the member states, and in the United States as well, at the European and the international level, to get to a good regulatory framework. So we can see all these different efforts. Well, the chicken and the egg, would that be a good metaphor? Do you think that the electronic cigarette is like a UFO within the new field of product? Yes, you have different definitions, of course, and there's different ways as well to regulate this. And not only the products, but also the industry. Well, we have the feeling that there's a classification problem. At the beginning in France, we saw it. There was, in 2013, there was a manifestation. In 2013, it went to the pharmaceutical direction, and it was linked somewhat to tobacco products. And we have the feeling that we're going from one box to another, and that they're trying to put us into this box. It is exactly that, yes, absolutely. At the World Health Organization level, there they try to put the electronic cigarette into a box which is linked to regular tobacco products, and that's not working at all. And they're trying to do the same thing in the United States. And we have tried to define our electronic cigarettes in another way, and this works better, I think. Of course, it's difficult to foresee, to do any forecasts on the evolution. In the United States, there's a big discussion going on. But how long do you think it would take? It's probably going to take years, but not dozens of years. In the United States, the FDA has proposed some regulations, but has also asked some questions. So they have changed their rules and they have asked questions, and in a few months or a few years there will be another consultation round. So it'll take probably 3 to 5 years. In Europe, this is going to be faster, this process. I think May 2016 is the deadline, and then probably we will see that evolutions will take place before that, and the different member states will indeed start to transpose the directive in their own ways, of course, into their national legislation. So things will evolve quickly. I do think so, yes, absolutely. We're going to see the first text. The concept to reduce risks for the smoker, that's how we try to define the electronic cigarette today, because we don't have the right, of course, as yet. And we cannot say, okay, this is going to help each and every one of us to stop smoking and pass on to the electronic cigarette. Do you think this is a new concept within the political area? This is my microphone, yes. So, is this a new concept? Not at all. It's not a new concept at all. It has been there for about 20 years now. And the first example were the exchange program for syringes for drug addicts to diminish the risks linked to what they're doing. And of course, think of condoms as well, preservatives, in order to make sure that people are not contaminated with AIDS or any other diseases. So it is in order to not to stop doing what you're doing, but it's to limit the risks. It's harm reduction in English. So you have to mitigate, you have to limit risks. You keep on doing what you're doing, but you're doing it in another way. For tobacco, it's the first time now that we have a product that can substitute, that can be replaced by the electronic cigarette. And the ex-smoker will become, for example, an e-cigarette smoker. And he can keep his habits as before, but he's just passing on to a different product. Well, tobacco within society is no longer very well accepted, or what does it look like for you? And it's difficult for people. In what way can you prohibit this? You think people will have to accept the electronic cigarette first before it can be generally accepted? Can they be offered an alternative in order to reduce the risks linked to smoking? Or, well, the biggest problem with this is that there's a lot of people, and mainly politicians within the health system, and they hate smoking. They hate smokers. They stigmatize them. And there's a lot of examples from America, also from the United Kingdom. And they find difficulties in accepting this habit, even though it reduces the risks. So this is the electronic cigarette I use. And is it a way of breaking the link between the traditional cigarette and the electronic cigarette when you use a different type? Yes, the electronic cigarette is often used in the Anglo-Saxon market, and the market is very differently from the French market. So the cigar-likes are extremely well developed. So the users have cigar-likes, and it looks more than the one you have in front of you. Looks more like a regular cigarette, but in France, there's less hate towards these products. And you have the second generation as well, of course. Nicholas, one question. Vaping today, does it have a political color? With all the changes and the new things that are being introduced into Europe, the directive, do you think that some political parties, some colors within politics, have more to say than others? For example, Democrats opposed to Republicans, for example. Can you say today that vaping is more, for example, right-wing or left-wing? No. I don't think so, no. I think that it's an industry that needs to be regulated. Everybody agrees on that. And there will be elections in the United Kingdom. They are going to take place in March. And in May, I think the electronic cigarette will not be in one or the other side, left or right wing. We will have to look at for the transposition, of course, into the national legislation, and the Brits will going to create one text before the elections even. Say they fought for that, and then afterwards they probably will adjust the text. But don't you think that there could be a reuse from the media, because it's a very popular topic within the media, and that the media use moments where people watch television, and then they're going to say, okay, you have to defend the electronic cigarettes, and they're going to be Republicans, for example, in the United States, who are going to say, okay, we have to defend this or that. No, we can't see this. We can't see it this way. This is something you can't foresee. We have to. I don't see any politicians defend a monopoly on something. Can you give a reaction to that, Nathalie? I share the opinion of my colleague here. We haven't seen any parties take one side or the other, be it right-wing or left-wing. The diseases that are linked to the fact of smoking has nothing to do with politics, nor right-wing nor left-wing. So it doesn't have anything to do with political colors, let's say. Vape is structurizing as an independent economy in the way that it started very slowly and small, and now when it's going into the pharmaceutical direction, you could have this separation of two things into two camps. One side, pharmaceutical, who's trying to defend its interests, to continue to sell patches, for example, nicotine gums, etc. And on the other hand, the tobacco industry that gets a new product, which is a new competitor on the market for electronic cigarettes. And three words: big tobacco, big vape. Maybe we can already see this tendency for a while. Tobacco industry is launching itself in this market. They're trying to get onto this market, e-cigs. And I think this will come, first of all, in the United States, if the FDA manages to conclude its rules as they proposed within the deadline they proposed, then it's going to be very difficult for smaller companies to keep their products on the market and to launch them on the market. And I think that this will cause an enormous impact, and that we will see, maybe, we will see fusions of different companies, industries, and probably we will see different movements on the market, shifts. In order to have a pre-market approval process, it takes 5,000 hours and several millions of dollars. And there's no companies in the United States that have the means to do this. And so when those rules are applied, this is going to take place quickly. The independent Vape concept, as opposed to the pharmacy concept, what do you think of this? Well, we don't want that the concept is that is scooped out by one or the other. And if we look, for example, at the directive on tobacco, then you have a number of provisions, and the products that are manufactured by the tobacco industry are linked to a number of rules, of course. And I think it's the vaping industry needs to be protected in a way. First of all, a couple of vendors launched themselves onto the market with innovative products. And if this would be monopolized, I think it would be a bad thing. In this big sector, economic sector, there's a lot of money going around. Do you think that we can talk today within the media of bad information going around when we're talking about the electronic cigarettes in the journals or in the newspapers, for example? We could go any further. We could go even further. Absolutely. There's a lot of bad information going around. And it's more in the sense where it's not bad information, where it's not wrong. The content of the information is wrong, but it is represented in a different way. And for example, just the night before Vape Expo started, a battery exploded, for example. Those are the titles you will see in some newspapers, or on the internet, another one, a battery exploded here or there. So, and this draws the attention of people. And of course, you have to be precautious with the new technologies of the batteries, of course. And afterwards, we heard also stories about people being poisoned, and that the number of people being poisoned is skyrocketing. So, yes, we have information, and sometimes it's bad information.
The president of ENG, which is the Independent Association of E-cigarette Users, which came here the first day, made that observation. He participates to all these, programs, and he explained to us the difference between the public service and private in the media. When it comes to a program, the information is dealt with in a different way. When you have, adverts in question or not. And in fact, we try to, find scoops or sensations and feelings and emotions with, through advertisements. Do you think that in France, via or through those networks, they deal that topic in a coherent way? I did not have the opportunity to think about that till now, and Brice is used to participating to these programs. But if I, think about the interviews, in fact, it may be true that some media find look for more emotions. But you also have private media who, deal with real information, real data. Le Monde, for example, the French newspapers, and publicated different points, different results, and was encouraging public authorities, to go and to choose those solutions. So having that diffusion, they said you would have you would have an improvement for all the illnesses and disease linked to, tobacco. So yes, it depends on the media. Really, you have very, very well balanced media. What about Big Vape's concept? Do you think that the presence of the industry in that field, in fact, we have seen a lot of big producers, big manufacturers buying, new companies, for example. Do you think it can have an impact, bad influence on the market? Shall we trust the industry in our world? Well, we try to analyze the market, on an objective point of view. So we do not try to give value, without any sense or giving, power to different industries. No, the idea is to be objective, so to, follow all the data. And actually, there is a trauma, in the media. In the media is linked to that, and Robert Proctor's book, was terrible. And when we see the industry, what that kind of industry has been made, and the possibility to, be developed in very, very precise fields, do you think we can trust them? Because if those people, I do not want to accuse anyone. It is a question, like open question. But I would like to push you in that sense. Do you think that in the future, if we have like a, precise brand, very well known, that will be present in these fairs, for example, shall we say? We will be afraid, or what is your reaction? I think we can analyze what has been made and what is being made, and when you have the FDA, like now, has just finished and closed a period of time, and they made a lot of commentaries and, remarks and comments and observations, and they just openly attack the open systems. They say it is really dangerous. So potentially it is very dangerous. That's what they say. So if you see the regulations, and if you try to regulate the e-cigarettes, that's what you need to regulate. And cigalikes, cigalikes are not dangerous. So we can already see a conflict here, which is clear between, on the one hand, the big industries, big firms, and on the other hand, the independent people. So we can really have, an association, for example, who says that the open systems, for example, do not want to regulate that, but want to regulate the e-cigarettes. So we can see clearly a conflict here, open conflict between those authorities, or so shall we trust or not those people? I don't know. We need to pay attention to what we see on the market. There is a conflict. And what is the profile? Shall we have a tax on the e-cigarette in France, in Europe, or in the States? We have seen different examples of some states in the United States that were imposing a tax on vapes products. Do you think that will be diffused? Yes, I do. And in the States, we have the equivalent of the VAT tax that is applied in the states where you have the VAT tax, so it is already being applied. And you have other states like Minnesota, for example. They started taxing products for e-cigarettes, and we have already seen that in Europe too. Italy, for example, they have started and imposed a tax they imposed, in fact, a tax in January this year. It has been contested, of course, and criticized. It is not being applied, since April, but it has been short, so the period has been short, but they are trying to formulate a new tax, preparing a new tax. So I think that governments need money, and they will tax wherever they can. In France, we've not heard similar things. Am I right, Nathalie? We are dealing with the states, but do you think that France has a different approach? If we can list the opinions of different governments, for example, we have in France a community which is quite active, and we dealt with important persons, VIPs or stars like Philippe Red or Jacques Le Hosel or Professor Doxenberg, who is very, very present in the media. So, why not? They have a very interesting point of view. Mainly, they deal with that, change in their ideas linked to the community or the health community and scientific community. So that's very interesting to have debates on that. And we have heard that people, had the possibility to make information, mainly in hospitals like Salpêtrière in Paris. So do you think that will be more and more diffused? Do you think that this approach is interesting? Till now, I think we only have the Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris. It is very interesting. It is a great experience. We need to see how it will develop. I don't know how it is diffused and how much. Of course, if specialists send and use that tool as a tool for quitting addiction, why not? Why not? We can really hope that that is being developed. If it is really useful, it is the key word. It must be useful, and I'm not sure it will be one of the main interesting measures in order to have, a change in the community of smokers, and mainly big smokers for, quitting and going to e-cigarettes. What about the EFI movement? And, a lot of countries are involved in that. Do you think that in France we are, in a certain way, in a good situation in our approach towards e-cig? Well, I think we were really in a good situation, good position. We were really in the perception, from politicians and also health staff, since in the UK, really they made an excellent job, and the health authorities declared it was not possible to prohibit vaping in public spaces. So there is an opening, there is really an open movement here, and France and UK are really, the main protagonists in that sense. So, depending on the countries, in the States we have, different rates for nicotines. We have 20 milligrams. So in France, in UK they are more flexible, for example. So we are not. It depends on the topic. Now, looking at all the European countries, I think it is really a paradise, because in Belgium, for example, the nicotine liquids are prohibited, as well as in Denmark. And after the directive on tobacco, the government said they wanted to make really a new medicine on that, and people are allowed to do it, So in Italy, you are dealing with that. They had a tax. That tax made people come back to the traditional cigarettes. In Spain, we have no campaign, or very few campaign of information, so people stop or quit e-cigarette, and so really they continue with the traditional cigarette. So really, in Spain, the market collapsed. So yes, I must say that in France, the situation is quite good. Nicolas, do you think that, talking about France, we can really describe it in a clear way? Well, I think that you, as you evoked before, UK has a big role to play also, and efforts to get good standardization on that topic are really progressing in the two countries, so France and UK. And I think France is not. France has a good market. It's not so exotic, and in France and in UK we'll have the same kind of typology. Many thanks to you, to both of you. After our session, we'll continue with the countries after the break, and then the afternoon will be dedicated to innovation. Many thanks to you all for your attention.